Hello everyone. Today we will be discussing one of the core Elliott wave patterns, the diagonal. The diagonal is a motive wave, meaning it is a five-wave pattern that is in the direction of the larger trend, just like an impulse wave. There are two versions of diagonals, the expanding and contracting variety, as well as two classifications, leading and ending. The exact type of diagonal depends on where in the wave sequence you happen to find it. And don't worry, we'll go over all of the different versions and details of these shortly. First, let's go over some of the rules and guidelines for labeling a diagonal. So let's zoom in on these two diagrams here. So diagonals are wedge-shaped and can be bounded by two trend lines, regardless of which type they are. Contracting, expanding, leading, ending, all can be bounded by trend lines. To draw those trend lines, we connect the extremes of waves 1 and 3, as well as the extremes of waves 2 and 4. All diagonals, regardless of type, consist of 5 subwaves, and that's the wave label in the circles here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All of which can further subdivide into 3 wave moves, so A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C, and so on. Now, there is one exception to this rule, but we will go over that closer to the end of the video. Diagonals are motive waves, like we said, but there is one very key difference that sets them apart from the impulse wave. In a diagonal, wave 4 almost always moves back into the price territory of wave 1. Now, many of us know that this is not allowed for an impulse wave. However, it is acceptable for a diagonal. It's not a hard rule per se, but it is a very strong guideline. It happens almost every time. So it's worth bearing that in mind as you are labeling these on your own. Diagonals can only be found in certain places in the larger wave structure. And again, we will go over the specifics on this very soon. But first, let's examine the two types of diagonals here. So this is the first type, the contracting diagonal. Now, we know this is one of the contracting variety because of the trend lines. The trend lines converge or move towards one another. So if we were to extend these trend lines out, we see that they get closer and closer and will eventually cross. That's how you know you're working with a contracting diagonal. Some rules to keep in mind for contracting diagonals. Wave 3 is always shorter than wave 1. Wave 4 is always shorter than wave 2, and wave 5 is always shorter than wave 3. Also, wave 2 cannot retrace more than 100% of wave 1, so that would be like this. This is not allowed. Wave 2 cannot move beyond the origin of wave 1. Also, wave 4 never moves beyond the extreme of wave 2. So something like this. This would not be allowed. Wave 4 cannot move beyond the extreme of wave 2. So now we can move on to the second type, the expanding diagonal here. And again, we can tell that this is one of the expanding variety because of the trend lines. In this case, they move away from each other, not toward each other. So if we were to expand these out, they would move away and never cross. That's how you know you are working with an expanding diagonal. Now, the rules and guidelines for expanding diagonals are similar to contracting, but they're flipped. They're almost like the opposite. Wave 3 is always longer than wave 1. Wave 4 is always longer than wave 2. And wave 5 is always longer than wave 3. And the expanding diagonal shares the same final two rules as contracting diagonals. Wave 2 cannot move beyond the origin of wave 1, and wave 4 cannot move beyond the extreme of wave 2. So now let's discuss the two different classifications of diagonals, the leading and the ending. So diagonals are categorized as either leading or ending, depending on whether they form at the start or end of a wave sequence. And as mentioned before, diagonals can only be found in certain positions of the larger term wave count. Wave 1 or A for our leading diagonals, and wave 5 and C for our ending diagonals. And here I have the impulse versions demonstrated, but here I have the corrections, the zigzag versions. Again, we see our ending diagonals in wave C, and we see our leading diagonals in waves A. So ending diagonals, as you can probably guess, appear at the end of a larger term wave sequence. They are usually found in wave 5 and C, usually when prices are moving pretty quickly. Because they are found at the end of a larger wave structure, they are a strong signal that a reversal is close by. And leading diagonals appear at the beginning of a larger term sequence. Leading diagonals are typically found in the wave 1 or A position, usually after a strong move. So you can use that as a clue. If you see a particularly strong, in this example, bear market, something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coming down here, and it was very intense, very strong. That's a clue that we might see some kind of leading diagonal form. Now, toward the top, we mentioned there was one exception to the rule, one guideline to take note of. For leading diagonals, not every subwave needs to be a 3-wave move. There is a rare variation of this pattern that involves waves 1, 3, and 5 being a 5-wave move, not 3. So as you can see here, waves 1, 3, and 5 subdivide into mini impulses, mini 5-wave moves. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, instead of the typical 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Now, wave 4 does still overlap with wave 1, so keep that in mind. And this is a rare occurrence, and that's why I wanted to save it to the end of the video. It is quite rare, but again, worth keeping in mind if you do see a wedge shape on your chart in one of the acceptable positions, and it doesn't have the 3, 3, 3, 3, 3 structure. If it does have a 5, 3, 5, 3, 5 structure, that is acceptable if it is, again, a leading diagonal in the wave 1 or wave A positions. So this was a lot of new info, and I hope it gives you enough to go out and label some diagonals on your own. But as always, please let us know if anything is still confusing you or still feels uncertain. And of course, we will do our best to help you out. So yes, thanks guys. Happy trading.